Now, one of the people down in Homestead today is this gentleman who is joining us on the set. He is Julio Calderon. He came to the United States from Honduras alone as a teenager. He's now an organizer with Florida Immigrant Coalition. And Julio, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you for having me here.
And I want to ask you, because your story is the story of these children. A number of years ago, you left Honduras by yourself when you were 16 years old. And a lot of Americans don't understand that. Why did you do that?
I think that if there was an opportunity to stay alive today, my mom was very clear, was to leave Honduras. People don't really get to understand what is going on in these countries unless you get to live in those countries. And there's a lot of violence, there's a lot of lack of opportunities, which is driving kids and families out of what's going on in Central America. It's not just Honduras, it's Honduras, El Salvador, and then Guatemala, and then taking into account also $250 million that U.S. taxpayers are sending to these countries or to militarize them. So it's money driven to these countries, and then which is also making them hard to live, and then also the violence and a lot of things going on. So people don't want to stay there. People just want to have an opportunity to live and have a better future.
So then you crossed the border at El Paso, Texas. You were detained by the Border Patrol. How long did you stay in custody?
You have no sense of time or day when you're in detention center. I would say about 3-4 days before my mom went to pick us up. We crossed the border with I have a twin brother and a younger brother. We were one of those coolers or hieleras, as you call them in Spanish, and yeah, we were there for a couple of days.
So can you just talk about the experience, what it was actually like? Did you go with coyotes? What it was like? How long it took you to actually get across the border until you were detained by ICE?
It took about 30 days to get to the U.S. I do remember I was 16, so I remember going through Guatemala, and there's one part of Mexico which is very militarized, Chiapas. And I remember going through Mexico and someone saying, do not speak Spanish, because they will know that you're not from here. And it was the first time that I said, how come I cannot speak Spanish in a country that speaks Spanish? And we made it to the U.S., but once again, right after we crossed the border, we were detained by Border Patrol, and that's where they took us inside the facilities.
And what is your status right now?
Right now, I am undocumented. Even though I am from Honduras, I came to the U.S. in 2005, which I'm not eligible for TPS. I was supposed to have a right.
Temporary protective status.
Temporary protective status, which the president already took it away from all of the countries. And I am also not a DACA eligible because I came to the U.S. 30 days after my 16th birthday. I was supposed to have arrived the U.S. before my 16th birthday.
So what are your plans? What are your plans to be able to stay here?
My only way it is for Congress to find a solution, and as we continue pushing for the DREAM Act, which would include not only DACA recipients, but also people like myself who are considered dreamers to be able to get legalized. So as of right now, that is the only solution.
And I know you were in Homestead today with Senator Nelson and Congresswoman Wasserman Schultz. Were you surprised when they were not allowed inside this facility?
I mean, this has already happened to a couple of senators, to a lot of people. I think that there's something historic that we have never seen in the U.S., and it is the criminalization of children. And if this is going to the books, this is something we're going to remember, because no kid or no children should be treated the way they're being treated right now. This is a traumatic, they're going to have traumas for the rest of their lives, and no one should be treated that way. So these are clear human rights violations. It doesn't matter how legal it is. We should not justify this with legal grounds. Slavery was illegal, and that was not okay. It is not a Democrat or a Republican issue. This is a moral issue, and that's why it needs to change.
What is your response, though, to people who say we should be angry at the parents? The parents broke the law. They crossed the border illegally. This is breaking the law, and there are consequences for that. And legal loopholes prevent families from staying together, and that's why we have to separate families.
I think that no kid should be separated from their family members. That's one thing. And then second, if you were a parent currently living in Honduras or Salvador right now, you would do anything to make sure that they survive, to make sure that you have a future with them. I think that we say that because we don't understand what is going on to those countries, and we're even afraid to go to those countries. So imagine what parents feel when they come and then they escape the violence and the poverty. So, you know, we need to welcome them as refugees, as what they are, and then make sure that they get the process that they deserve.
Okay, Julio, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Julio.
On this very emotional issue. And if you're interested in learning more about the Florida Immigrant Coalition, either because you need help or you want to help, you can call them. Here's their number, 888-600-5762. We're sure that right now they would be very happy to hear from you. And for more on this developing situation, turn to the free CBS Miami News app. It's easy to find. Go to your app store and search CBS Local, download that, and then scroll down until you see Miami.